I'm James Anderson, a 68-year-old retired civil engineer from Seattle. My son Michael had made it big in real estate development, while his wife Diana was a partner at one of the city's most prestigious law firms. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary at their waterfront mansion when my world turned upside down. The party was exactly what you'd expect from a power couple: champagne flowing, Seattle's elite mingling, and a view of the Puget Sound that probably cost more than my entire retirement savings. I'd always felt a bit out of place in their world, but Michael insisted on including me in every celebration. I was nursing my second glass of champagne when Michael clinked his glass for attention. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced to the gathered guests. "To my amazing wife Diana, who not only keeps me in line but has been managing our family's finances brilliantly. Dad, I hope the trust fund she set up has been making retirement more comfortable." The silence that followed his question felt like a physical presence in the room. "What trust fund?" I asked, genuinely confused. The crystal champagne flute in Diana's hand trembled so violently that drops of golden liquid splashed onto her designer dress. Her perfectly made-up face went as white as a sheet. "The monthly deposits, $60,000 each month for the past year," Michael continued, his smile fading. "Diana said she'd arrange everything with your financial advisor." "I don't have a financial advisor," I said slowly, "and I certainly haven't seen any $60,000 deposits." The room seemed to freeze. Diana's carefully maintained composure cracked like thin ice. Several guests suddenly became very interested in their drinks or the view, sensing the tension building. "There must be some confusion," Diana said, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." Michael's face darkened. "No, let's discuss it now. Dad, Diana told me she'd been managing a trust fund for you, $60,000 monthly deposits for the past year. That's $720,000 total." I did some quick math in my head. That amount would have more than doubled my retirement savings. "Son, I haven't seen a penny of that money." Diana excused herself abruptly, nearly knocking over a waiter as she hurried toward her home office. Michael followed, and after a moment's hesitation, I did too. The party continued behind us, but the jovial atmosphere had evaporated. In the office, Diana was frantically typing at her computer. Her hands shook so badly she had to keep retyping her password. Michael stood behind her, his face growing darker with each passing second. "Show me the transfers," he demanded. I need to access the secure server," Diana stammered. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" Michael's voice was dangerously quiet. "What's complicated about transferring money to a trust fund?" I watched from the doorway, feeling an odd sense of déjà vu. 20 years ago, I'd caught Michael trying to forge my signature on a school permission slip. He'd had the same panicked look Diana wore now. Finally, Diana pulled up some documents, bank transfers, investment reports, all showing regular $60,000 deposits into what was supposedly my trust fund. But I'd never seen any of these documents before. "These are forgeries," I said quietly. 30 years of reviewing engineering documents had taught me to spot inconsistencies. "The routing numbers don't match standard bank formats." Michael leaned in closer to the screen. "Where's the money, Diana?" She broke down then, tears streaming down her expertly contoured face. "I had to do it. They were going to destroy everything." "Who?" Michael demanded. "What are you talking about?" "The Barrett case," she whispered. "I made a mistake, approved documents I shouldn't have. When they found out, they threatened to report me to the Bar Association. I'd lose my license, my partnership, everything." The pieces started falling into place. The Barrett case had been Diana's biggest triumph last year, a massive corporate merger worth billions. She'd been celebrated in legal circles for pulling it off. They said if I helped them hide certain assets, they'd keep quiet, Diana continued. "I needed money to move quickly, to set up offshore accounts. I was going to put it all back." Michael slumped into a chair. "You stole from my father to cover up corporate fraud." "I was protecting us." Diana's voice rose hysterically. "If this got out, we'd lose everything. Your development deals with Barrett's companies would collapse. Our reputation." "Our reputation." Michael laughed bitterly. "You stole $720,000 from my father." I raised my hand, silencing them both. Years of managing construction sites had taught me how to handle crisis situations. Diana, who exactly threatened you? She wiped her eyes, sneering expensive mascara. Robert Barrett Jr. and his board. They knew about the irregularities in the merger documents. Said they had proof I'd overlooked due diligence requirements deliberately. And did you? I asked gently. Her silence was answer enough. Michael was already on the phone with his lawyer. Diana sat at her desk, shoulders slumped, the powerful attorney reduced to a scared woman who'd make catastrophically bad choices. I thought about the irony. All those years of teaching Michael about honesty, and now his wife had committed fraud using my name. But something about Diana's story nagged at me. The Barrett family had a reputation for aggressive business tactics. Show me everything, I said to Diana. All the documents, all the threats, everything. For the next hour, as the anniversary party wound down awkwardly downstairs, Diana revealed the extent of her deception. The Barrett merger had been built on fraudulent documents. When the Barrett family discovered Diana's oversight, they'd blackmailed her into helping them hide assets from regulators. She'd used my supposed trust fund as a way to move money quickly, creating a complex web of transfers and offshore accounts. The $720,000 wasn't lost. It was scattered across dozens of hidden accounts, part of a larger scheme to conceal the Barrett family's financial manipulations. Michael paced the office, occasionally barking questions into his phone. His lawyer was assembling a team to handle the crisis, but I kept focusing on the bigger picture. Diana, I said, how many other lawyers did the Barretts blackmail? She looked up, surprised by the question. At least 3 that I know of. They always look for overlooked mistakes, then use them as leverage. I nodded slowly. So this isn't just about our money. It's about systematic corporate fraud. Michael paused his pacing. Dad, what are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said carefully, that the Barretts picked the wrong family to blackmail. Diana's eyes widened. You can't go against them. They're too powerful. I smiled, remembering all the impossible construction projects I'd managed over my career. No one's too powerful when you have the right structural support. Michael, call your lawyer back. Tell him we're not just trying to recover money. We're going to bring down the whole corrupt system. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Michael's legal team arrived, setting up a command center in the dining room. Diana, seeing a chance at redemption, began documenting everything she knew about the Barrett family's schemes. I sat in a corner, watching my son and his wife working together despite the breach of trust, and thought about how sometimes the worst situations bring out unexpected strengths. As dawn approached, Michael came to sit beside me. Dad, I'm so sorry about all this. I patted his shoulder. Son, in 40 years of engineering, I learned something important. Sometimes you have to let a damaged structure collapse completely before you can rebuild it properly. He nodded, understanding. We're going to fix this. Yes, I said, watching Diana work with the lawyers. Her legal skills now focus on exposing corruption rather than hiding it. We're going to fix a lot more than just this. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal activity and strategic planning. Michael's development company suspended all dealings with Barrett-owned businesses, while Diana worked with federal investigators, providing evidence of widespread fraud. The Barrett family, predictably, retaliated. Robert Barrett Jr. called Michael directly, his threats thinly veiled beneath a veneer of corporate courtesy. Your father's trust fund situation could become very complicated, he said smoothly. Tax authorities tend to ask difficult questions about large, undocumented transfers. Michael had the call on speaker in our makeshift war room. You mean the money your family forced my wife to steal? The same money that's now documented in federal evidence. Barrett's pause was telling. He hadn't expected us to go to the authorities so quickly. I leaned forward. Mr. Barrett, this is James Anderson. I'm the engineer whose name you used in your fraud scheme. Would you like to know what 40 years of structural analysis teaches you? I failed to see the relevance. It teaches you that when you find one crack in a foundation, there are usually dozens more hidden beneath the surface. Diana wasn't the only lawyer you blackmailed, was she? The silence on the other end of the line stretched out. Finally, Barrett spoke, his smooth tone replaced by something harder. You have no idea what you're dealing with, old man. Actually, I replied, I spent my career dealing with people who cut corners to save money. It always ends the same way, with something collapsing. After Barrett hung up, Diana looked at me with newfound respect. I've never heard anyone stand up to him like that. Bullies are all the same, I said. whether they're on a playground or in a boardroom. The investigation expanded rapidly. Diana's documentation led investigators to other lawyers and executives who'd been caught in the Barrett family's web of blackmail and fraud. One by one, they came forward, each revelation exposing more of the corrupt system. Michael's legal team discovered that the Barretts had been running this scheme for over a decade. They would acquire companies through fraudulent mergers, hide assets offshore, then strip the businesses bare before moving on to their next target. Diana's role in their scheme had been relatively small, helping conceal assets through a series of complex transfers, including the $720,000 they forced her to steal from me. But her evidence proved crucial in exposing their larger operation. The money's still traceable, she explained, showing us diagrams of the transfer networks. They made me move it through multiple accounts, but I kept records of everything. Force of habit from my legal training. The FBI set up surveillance on key Barrett family members and their associates. I found myself working closely with the forensic accounting team, my engineering experience with complex systems proving surprisingly relevant to tracking financial fraud. One morning, about 3 weeks into the investigation, Diana received an unexpected visitor at her law firm. Sarah Chen, another partner who'd been involved in Barrett deals. They got to me too, Sarah confessed. 3 years ago, made me help hide merger documents that would have exposed their asset stripping. I've been their puppet ever since. More lawyers came forward, then executives, then accountants. The pattern was always the same. The Barretts would find some minor oversight or mistake, then use it as leverage to force people into participating in their larger fraud scheme. Michael focused on protecting his company from Barrett retaliation, while Diana worked with prosecutors to build their case. I spent my days reviewing financial documents, looking for the same kinds of structural weaknesses I'd once sought in buildings. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. My old engineering habits had led me to create detailed flowcharts of all the Barrett family's companies and their transactions. Looking at the pattern from an engineer's perspective, I noticed something others had missed. Look at this, I said, spreading the charts across our conference table. Every third transfer goes through the same series of offshore accounts. It's like a pressure relief valve in a hydraulic system. Diana leaned in, excited. Those accounts, they're all administered by the same bank in Singapore. The bank that Robert Barrett Jr.'s sister works for, Michael finished. Dad, you just found their weak point. The FBI moved quickly. Within days, they had frozen the Singapore accounts, cutting off the Barrett family's ability to move their hidden assets. Robert Barrett Jr. and his core associates were arrested the following week. As the case made headlines, I watched my son and his wife begin the difficult process of rebuilding trust. Diana had been granted immunity in exchange for her cooperation, but the real punishment was living with what she'd done. I keep thinking about what you said, she told me one evening, about having to let damaged structures collapse before rebuilding. I thought I was protecting everything by giving in to their demands, but I was just making the foundation weaker. I nodded. The strongest structures are the ones built with integrity from the ground up. The FBI's investigation eventually revealed that the Barrett family scheme had defrauded investors of over $2 billion. My stolen $720,000 was recovered, along with money taken from dozens of other victims. Michael and Diana decided to use their portion of the recovered funds to establish a legal defense fund for whistleblowers. They named it the Anderson Integrity Project, despite my protests about using my name. Dad, Michael said, you taught me that standing up to bullies isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting everyone they might hurt next. This fund will help others do what we did. 6 months after the anniversary party that exposed everything, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Robert Barrett Jr. and his associates plead guilty to multiple counts of fraud, money laundering, and extortion. Diana was there too, but this time she sat on the prosecution's side, her testimony having helped build an ironclad case. The scandal had transformed the Seattle business community. Companies were implementing new oversight procedures, and law firms were establishing anonymous reporting systems for ethical concerns. My son's development company had emerged stronger, now known for its transparent business practices. But the personal transformations were even more significant. Diana had surrendered her law partnership voluntarily, choosing instead to work with the Anderson Integrity Project, helping other professionals resist and report corporate extortion. You know what the hardest part was? She confided one evening as we reviewed applications for whistleblower assistance. Not the threats, not even the fear of being caught. It was facing myself in the mirror every morning, knowing what I'd become. I understood. Every engineer learns that the most dangerous flaws are the ones we try to hide rather than fix. Michael had changed too. He'd always been driven by success, measuring himself against other developers. Now he focused on building something more valuable than luxury properties, a legacy of corporate integrity. The recovered money sat untouched in my account while I considered its best use. The Anderson Integrity Project was doing good work, but something was still missing from the equation. My answer came during a conversation with Sarah Chin, the lawyer who'd helped break open the Barrett case. She described how isolating it felt to be caught in their scheme. "We're all trained to be self-reliant," she explained. "Asking for help feels like admitting failure. That's what the Barretts counted on, our pride keeping us silent." That evening I called a family meeting. Michael and Diana arrived at my modest home, where I'd laid out plans on my old drafting table. "I want to create a support network," I explained. "Not just legal help or financial assistance, but a community for people facing corporate extortion. A place where they can find the strength to do the right thing." Diana leaned forward, intrigued. "Like a support group?" "More than that. A complete support system, legal, financial, emotional. We'll call it the Foundation for Corporate Ethics and Recovery." Michael studied the plans. "You want to use your settlement money for this?" "All of it," I nodded. The Barrett case showed us that money can be recovered, but lost integrity is harder to rebuild. People need help reconstructing their moral foundation. Over the next few months, we built the foundation from the ground up. Diana's legal expertise helped structure it, while Michael's business acumen ensured its sustainability. I contributed my engineering perspective, the understanding that every strong structure needs both solid supports and flexibility to withstand pressure. We held our first support group meeting in a small conference room. 3 people attended, all professionals who'd been caught in various corporate extortion schemes. By the 3rd meeting, we needed a larger venue. The foundation grew rapidly, expanding beyond Seattle. We established chapters in other cities, each offering the same comprehensive support system. My engineering background proved surprisingly valuable in helping people analyze their situations objectively and build strategic responses. 1 year after the Barrett case broke, we hosted a conference on corporate ethics. The keynote speaker was a surprise choice, Diana. She stood at the podium, looking both professional and humbled. "A year ago, I thought I was protecting my family by giving in to extortion," she began. "I convinced myself that compromising my integrity was somehow less harmful than facing the consequences of my mistakes. I was wrong." The audience, filled with business leaders and legal professionals, sat in complete silence. What I learned from my father-in-law, an engineer who spent his career ensuring structures don't collapse, is that integrity isn't just a personal virtue, it's the foundation everything else is built on. When we compromise it, no matter our reasons, we endanger everything and everyone connected to us. After her speech, a young accountant approached me. "My firm's been pressuring me to hide certain transactions," she whispered. "I've been afraid to speak up, but after hearing your story," I smiled, remembering my own moment of decision at that anniversary party. "The first step is the hardest," I told her. "But you don't have to take it alone." The Foundation for Corporate Ethics and Recovery eventually helped expose dozens of corporate fraud schemes. But its real success was harder to measure. The schemes that never succeeded because people found the strength to resist, the professionals who rediscovered their integrity before it was too late. Michael and Diana's marriage emerged stronger from the crisis. They'd faced their worst moment together and built something better from the ruins. They now teach ethics courses together at local universities, sharing their story as both a warning and a hope. As for me, I found an unexpected second career. My engineering expertise, combined with the moral authority of someone who helped expose major corporate fraud, made me a sought-after consultant on corporate ethics and structural integrity. The principles are the same. I often tell groups of executives, whether you're building a bridge or a business, cutting corners eventually leads to collapse. But with the right support system, even damaged structures can be rebuilt stronger than before. 6 months after the anniversary party that exposed everything, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Robert Barrett Jr. and his associates receive their sentences. The judge was particularly harsh, citing the systematic nature of their fraud and the lives they had damaged. The court notes with particular disapproval your method of corrupting legal professionals through blackmail, the judge said. You didn't just steal money, you stole people's integrity. Diana sat beside me, her hand gripping Michael's. She had testified earlier in the proceedings, laying out how the Barrett family had trapped her and others in their scheme. Her testimony had been crucial in securing the convictions. After the sentencing, we gathered in my modest home, the same home where I had raised Michael, teaching him about honesty and integrity. Diana had changed since that night at the anniversary party. The polished corporate lawyer was gone, replaced by someone more genuine, more human. The Anderson Integrity Project received 5 new whistleblower cases this week, she told us, picking at the takeout dinner we'd ordered. 2 of them involved similar blackmail schemes at other companies. Michael nodded. It's more common than anyone wants to admit. People make small mistakes, then get trapped into bigger ones trying to cover them up. I thought about my years teaching Michael about right and wrong. The mistake isn't what defines you, I said. It's what you do after you make it. The investigation had uncovered similar schemes at 3 other major corporations. The SEC was now investigating dozens of mergers and acquisitions, looking for patterns of fraud and blackmail. Our case had opened a Pandora's box of corporate corruption. Diana had left her prestigious law firm, focusing instead on helping other whistleblowers come forward. Her insider knowledge of corporate law and fraud made her uniquely qualified to guide others through the process she had endured. Sometimes I wonder, she said one evening, what would have happened if I just admitted my mistake with the merger documents right away, before the Barretts could use it against me. You have faced consequences, Michael replied, but nothing like what they forced you into. The recovery of my stolen money had come with an unexpected twist. The offshore accounts had generated significant interest, meaning I actually received back more than was taken. After much discussion, I decided to donate the extra money to the Anderson Integrity Project. Dad, you don't have to do this, Michael protested. Yes, I do, I replied, because the next person being blackmailed needs to know they have somewhere to turn. The project quickly gained a reputation as a safe haven for corporate whistleblowers. Diana's experience made her particularly effective at spotting the signs of coercion and helping people break free from similar schemes. One case involved a young accountant who had discovered irregularities in his company's books. When he reported it to his superiors, they threatened to frame him for the fraud unless he helped cover it up. The project helped him document everything and take it to the authorities. Another case featured a senior executive who had been forced to participate in price fixing after her company discovered she had failed to disclose a conflict of interest. With the project's help, she exposed the entire operation. Michael's real estate development company had emerged stronger from the Barrett scandal. His transparent handling of the situation and commitment to fighting corporate fraud had actually enhanced his reputation. Several major pension funds now specifically sought out his projects, citing his proven integrity. The hardest part was watching Diana rebuild her life. She had lost her partnership, her professional reputation, and many of her former friends. But she had gained something else, a sense of purpose and genuine integrity that no amount of corporate success could provide. I used to think success was about winning cases and making partner, she told me one day. Now I realize it's about being able to look in the mirror and respect the person you see. The Anderson Integrity Project expanded to include educational programs for law students and young professionals, teaching them how to recognize and resist corrupt practices. Diana often shared her story as a cautionary tale. The moment you compromise your integrity, she would tell them, you give others power over you. I learned that lesson the hard way. A year after the Barrett case, we held another party at Michael and Diana's house. This time, it wasn't to celebrate an anniversary, but the successful prosecution of another major fraud case the project had helped expose. Looking around at the gathered whistleblowers, lawyers, and investigators, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My stolen money had ultimately led to something valuable, a way to help others stand up against corporate corruption. Diana approached me during the party, looking nervous. I've never properly apologized, she said, for stealing from you, for abusing your trust. I held up my hand. You've done more than apologize. You've spent the last year helping others avoid the same trap. That's worth more than any apology. As the party wound down, Michael raised his glass for a toast. To my father, he said, who taught me that true strength isn't about power or money. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. I looked at my son and his wife, thinking about how sometimes the worst actions can lead to the best outcomes if we're brave enough to face the consequences and learn from them.